Hello, welcome to Forest Focus. You might remember this time last week we caught up with a Nottingham Forest loan player and a sister club in Olympiacos. So why not combine the two was my thinking here as we talk a bit about Rio Ave and a bit about players like Omar Richards, Jonathan Panzo and Brandon Aguilera in the company of Barney from the Long Ball Futebol podcast. Barney, good to have you with us. How are you this evening?
Yeah, very good, thanks. Good to be back. I always feel a bit low after the season finishes. Like it's a bit of an anticlimax. We've been so busy all year, but then it's nice to sort of to think about, all these other little stories going on and transfers as well, getting started. So, yeah, it's good to talk about Rio Ave with you.
Well, speaking of anticlimax, this is done on Zoom, not our usual platform, just because of, just the standard worldwide outage, which is not really what you normally want. So hopefully this all comes together nicely. I'm sure it will. So yeah, let's have a chat about Rio Ave, obviously. I think I'm saying Rio Ave, right? I'm sure it's you boys who pronounce it that way. Is that right?
I've got to be honest, Albert's much better at the pronunciations than me, but yeah, what you're saying sounds good. Although Albert might be thinking, "Oh, no, this is wrong," but yeah, I say Rio Ave. Rio Ave's also good.
What about the season for them in general? And I had a quick look, and I know nothing about them other than their league position, which was 11th out of 18. They finished, I think, 11 points above the relegation zone. Is that par, or will they be disappointed with that? Would you say?
No, it's been a poor season for them. It started quite interestingly. We were very interested in them this year, particularly with the amount of players coming in from Olympiacos and Forest. They hired a fairly young and up and coming manager, Lewis Freer, who's always sort of flirted with being good, and there's been always been stories around him and the big teams in Portugal. So getting him was quite exciting. That didn't go to plan. He was out after a couple of months, October, November, and then they brought in a slightly more experienced manager, but a manager who'd done well at Strong Boavista last year, Petit, and he came in and wasn't able to improve things after that either. So they've had a difficult season. Um, a lot of play, a very big squad, which is a little unusual for Portugal, and it's been quite interesting to see them manage that as the season's gone on. And yeah, I think they would have had ambitions for sort of fifth, sixth spot, potentially getting into the Conference League. They were nowhere near that really, and it's been a bit of a struggle. So it's been interesting to see it develop as the season's played out. It was interesting to see Petit come in for Luis Freire because Luis Freire for us, the manager at the beginning of the season, was someone who, with this link to Olympiacos and Forest, if it had gone well, he could have been someone who could have been, looking to those clubs in the future potentially. Petit was a more interesting decision because he'd done well with a very poor Boavista squad who had their financial issues in a multi-club ownership with Lille, and that's all gone financially terribly for them. So they had a bare bones squad, youth players. He did incredibly well. They were first, they were top of the league last year about November time, which was incredible. And then so that's why he got this job. But Petit came in and yeah, just they've had a really disappointing season. Lots of losses to smaller teams. They haven't been able to really find their strongest 11. Although some players have, cemented their positions like Panzo and Richards, who we'll get on to. But yeah, a quite a disappointing season really for Rio.
Just it sounds maybe is it a bit too chaotic then in terms of recruitment and just not letting things settle, or was it down to some poor choices? What do you think went wrong?
Yeah, so Lewis Free 3-4-3 formation. Richards was playing in the left midfield position for that. Panzo at the back, and that seems to be all right. But they had some heavy losses to the big teams, which is always sort of throws Lewis free around. Petit came in, changed to like a 4-2-3-1. And yeah, as I mentioned, there was just so many players in and out of the team. When you look at the squad for Rev and compare it to the rest of the league, so many different players, so many different nationalities. Um, and it always felt quite messy. There was never any. It just that it seems like an obvious thing to say, but it just felt like there was quite little chemistry really in the team, the players that when they were playing their games. Um, uh, there was a moment in the season actually where Jonathan Panzo got interviewed post match, just a little quick interview on the pitch. It got it sort of VS Sports who do the coverage put it out on their YouTube channel, and the reporters were great. They were speaking to him in English, but it really struck me because Panzo's a really happy guy, but he's really nice guy. But it just had he was just the way he was talking to her. He was happy they'd won. I think he'd scored, um, but it just seemed like he didn't really. He was a bit like, oh, what's going on? Like a bit like it always seemed like a bit of a novelty. The fact that he was being interviewed, and I don't know. For me, I was speaking to Alba about. I sort of took from that like it just felt that he's this guy on loan. So many players in that squad are on loan, and it just felt like he is like almost like, what am I doing here? This is a bit like Um, so yeah, I've got the impression as the season's gone on, it's just been hard for Petit to sort of gel the team together. When Petit had his success at Boavista, he had like a bare bones squad, youth players like I mentioned, and he really managed to galvanize them, get them to like overperform. It's been the complete opposite with Rio Ave this year, so it has felt a bit like there's been this what start at the beginning of the season, what seemed quite exciting with all this talent coming from all the other clubs. It's sort of yeah, it sort of presented itself in a sort of messy, just not very good combination of players, and they were never able to find the right combination essentially.
I don't know if you can answer this one because they're quite a small club and you probably don't speak to their fans. But did you detect any fan frustration around it, or is that not one you can speak to?
Uh, the impressions we've got is that it's a few weird decisions, and more often than not, they look to the manager appointments, and Petit really has proved to be a sort of poor appointment. I felt sorry for Luis Freire losing his job because apart from the big losses to the big teams, he hadn't really done much wrong, and they were playing sort of like the football they were playing was pretty good. Petit is sort of the opposite, really. Like they're just there doesn't really seem to be much of a plan. It's more sort of left to the players to sort of work it out. And I think that appointment really sort of disappointed the club. I've seen now that despite the fan base, I've seen now that they've actually appointed Olympiacos' assistant manager to be the new manager. So I think that's getting confirmed in the next few days. So that once again, like, it'll be interesting to see, how that plays out. Yeah, I think they brought Petit in to try and steady the ship, and that didn't work out. And I think that's where they went wrong this season.
Yeah, I was reading earlier that they're appointing. Oh yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm not even going to say his name. I should have practiced this beforehand.
Yeah, I made sure not to.
Yeah, Satiris Siladopoulos as the new head coach, appointed by former Ajax assistant Dimitris Goumas, and bringing an Olympiacos player into the academy as well. So you can see the links between the sister clubs, certainly. Let's talk more about the Forest connection that's definitely there. And Omar Richards is the primary one because he was on Forest retain list, which suggests he's coming back next season after what feels like a successful loan. Just me looking at his minutes and reading a couple of reports on him, but it seems very encouraging after his years of injury problems that he's played 30 plus games and a lot of 90 minutes in there, primarily left back. But I saw you mentioned he played left mid as well at the start of the season.
Yeah, so yeah, that's been his minutes, as you mentioned, has been the biggest thing for him this year. There was an injury at the end of the season, a little niggle that put him out for about 5-6 weeks. Um, but yeah, he's basically played every minute. Um, and as I mentioned, yeah, a couple of different positions as well. Under Lewis, at the beginning of the season, there was a 3-4-3, so he was playing sort of on the left of midfield, slightly more attacking position. But then when Petit came in, he's very much left back. Um, Defensively, been really good. Like his numbers, stand out, and he's been decent in himself. But obviously, we have had issues defensively, but he's looked decent. Yeah, he's like no, and he's one of the few players who had nailed on their spot in the team for both managers. I think he even did a game at centre back. Sorry, just thinking about it. But yeah, the thing that's frustrated me, and you know better than me, when he came to Rio Ave, my perception of I haven't watched him very much, but I always saw him as quite an attacking fullback.
Mm.
Under Petit, he was not given any license to do any sort of attacking really. Uh, so yeah, there wasn't that side of the game that we saw that often. which was a bit of a shame. But I think the biggest takeaway this season has to be the consistency, the minutes, and how like just getting a regular run and pretty being defensively quite sound. He seemed all right on the ball as well, like but the way Petit plays, he was more safe passes and stuff, and there wasn't much overlapping at all, not much crossing and that. But yeah, he's him and Panzo actually, sorry, but probably the two players who played the most consistently in their positions. The rest of the pitch, there was changes throughout the whole season, but him and Panzo, yeah, really got into the team and did pretty well.
Yeah. Well, I hadn't seen that much of him either. I mean, I've seen him at Reading as a kid, and he stood out. And he played for us in pre-season in the Spanish tour, and he scored a goal. And he looked bright actually, he looked fit. So that was encouraging. I mean, I suppose the big question is, can it translate back to the Premier League? So I'll
Yeah,
preface that beforehand by asking you, um, in terms of Portuguese football, not the level, but the style as much as anything. The Premier League feels quite fast and physical and athletically demanding. And I'm just wondering, is the Portuguese league a bit slower and a bit less taxing on a body which has taken a lot of injuries? Is that fair, or is the Portuguese league
yeah.
akin to the Premier League?
Just a quick word for the Trent navigation and a reminder that tomorrow, so that's Saturday, 3 till 8, 3 p.m. till 8 p.m., a daytime gig headlined by the Sex Pistols expose. We've been mentioning it for a while, but it's also a celebration of all music from that era. You've got DJ Lee Nicholson playing everything from ska, two-tone, reggae, rock, and punk. And then, as mentioned, it's headlined by the world's best Sex Pistols tribute band, the Sex Pistols Expose. If you need tickets, scan the QR code on the screen if you're on YouTube, or search Fatsoma or search on fatsoma.com to get your tickets now.
No, that's definitely fair. And I think since I've started this podcast, I'm always coming into it quite positively and sort of wanting to hype up the Portuguese players and the talent in the league. But as the years have gone by and seeing more players make moves to England and stuff, it's given me a better understanding of the difference in level. I think about Fabio Vieira and uh, who went to Arsenal, and Chiquinho, Portuguese winger, who was playing for the middle table team and went to Wolves and never really got into the team. I think he had a loan in the Championship as well. So yeah, there is that gap, which for me is becoming more and more not a stumbling block, but the gap is certainly there between the Premier League and the Portuguese league. So it's hard for me to say whether I think he could make the jump into the Premier League. Obviously, he's got a brilliant career behind him and sort of where he's playing, and obviously he's had his injuries, but those experiences and going to those big teams always have helped him. I think, yeah, I keep coming back to his defensive performance this year, and because I quite like my statistics and seeing sort of the percentiles he's featuring in the league, like that is encouraging for me. Yeah, but in terms of physicality, speed, there is that jump, and it's whether he's going to be ready to come and do a job. Because it's interesting to see where he will fit into your squad, particularly with the fact that you have Europe now as well. Yeah, if he is a player that you're going to have to use occasionally, I don't think he's going to be miles off it at all. I don't think he'll be starting for you. I imagine you'll be looking for another left back to come in. But in terms of a squad player, I think he should be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the issue for him is like we don't have depth at fullback, but if we're signing a player from Botafogo by the sound of it called oh my God, Cuiabano. I was going to say Chiquino then because I was listening to what you said. Cuiabano, who can play left wing, left back, that kind of thing that Richards has done, and it just makes you think they might move him on. Maybe if that deal falls through, then they might give him a chance because there is a player there. I'll ask you just quickly about Jota Silva, who signed for us. Then he had a nice steady season. He was quite often first cab off the rank for a substitute winger. I don't think personally we did a keep sell loan thing yesterday on the whole squad, and the consensus was you probably sell him because he looks like he's of a level, but if you're going to try and get in Europe all the time, maybe he's not quite what you need. Like he's a good squad player and he's not let himself down, but
Mm.
maybe he's not quite got the technical ability. In fact, he was compared to a burst balloon by a former Forest player on here because he'll just run and run and rat and have good
Yeah.
moments, but not quite enough. Does that sound like a fair assessment from what you saw in Portugal? Does that surprise you?
Well, he's another one who I remember talking to you about him, where of all the players that have moved, I was most confident he'd be able to deal with the Premier League. And in a sense, he out of those players, he probably has in terms of the minutes he's got and what he's done for you guys. But yeah, I think it was nice to see him in the Premier League. But he was another one he had a rapid rise. He only played for Vitória, who nowadays aren't the biggest team in Portugal. So yeah, I think that's fair. I don't think he would take you to European level. But I was happy to see him. I was happy to see what he's done this season to sort of show you that there, yeah, show people that, yeah, he could be like a low level Premier League team, maybe like a top end Championship player. Like, yeah, I think and for me, I'm quite happy for him for that because yeah, he's had a sort of a really rapid rise, and yeah, I was happy for him.
Yeah, I think he's a player, like a Premier League player from kind of maybe 12th to 14th downwards. Like if
Mm.
he was starting every week, then I think he'd be fighting relegation. And I'm not being disrespectful because,
Yeah,
if you're
yeah,
playing in the Premier League, you're a good footballer, but and
yeah.
we all really like him, but not quite just that next step. Just on Panzo, then, I don't think he was on the retain list. And there's been talk that he's just going to sign for Rio Ave because it's been a success by the sound of it. For people
Yeah.
listening not aware, he played 26 games, but he was hampered by injury. So it sounds like when he played, he was good. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Really good actually. I was trying to think. I think, I think it was a first half of the season, but I think he gave Gyökeres one of the hardest games he has had in Portugal for a while, which is saying something. Yeah, he's settled really well, really comfortable on the ball. He's looked a threat actually at corners as well. He's obviously quite physically dominant for this league, and 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 he seems to be quite happy there, which is really nice. And like I mentioned that interview, I remember watching and thinking that he looked a bit like, "What am I doing here?" But actually, as the season's gone on and now the end of the season, it feels like he just looks quite happy to be in Portugal, which is great to see. He's obviously had played all over Europe as well, so he'd be used to that. Um, I I I find him really interesting because I always look at it with the other clubs in the league and. The fact that he's left-footed, Sporting might lose Inacio this season, like probably their best centre back, left-footed centre back, and for me, he could slot into that and fit into the back three. I think he's got that versatility to do that. He's very good on the ball. Yeah, I think it's been a great season for him. And I think it'd be really good for Rio Ave they can keep him because it's not often you get defenders of that quality. So yeah, it'd be a bit of a coup. I couldn't work out because there's been various stories. Is he still got contracts at Forest, or is he come to an
No, I
end? And
think it's come to an end. I'll have a look, or will we go through the next question? But I think he's come to an end. I think he's been unlucky. He's one of those players that was probably signed for a Championship promotion push, and
mm,
then develop as a Premier League player. And yeah, we got promoted, and he's been unlucky. But it's really good for him to play because he was in that England 17 squad that
yeah,
won the Euros and had a lot of talent. So yeah, we're really happy for him and hearing that he's doing well. Just to ask you quickly about Brandon Aguilera, who we did sell to Rio Ave, but he was a promising Forest youngster. I see he's got minutes. Have you seen much of him or not?
yeah. So he's gone on a bit of a journey this season. He was playing attacking midfield, sometimes as like a 10 behind the striker as well. But then as the season got on, the new manager came in. He's actually played in the coming further and further back, which has been interesting to see him develop. Um, he always looks good. He's got a few goals. I think, yeah, I think the fact that Rio Ave bought him is good because I don't think he's quite at the level of Forest, but for this league, he should do fine. Um, and yeah, he's one of those players that I like to watch. He's like just quite good on the ball, nice and skillful. And yeah, he's to Petit's credit, the Rio Ave manager's just left. He did. develop some players quite nicely. Aguilera's one, I think. Um, I think he's the bringing him further back has really helped him. I think, and I think he'll be good for Real next season. He's definitely good for this Portuguese league. He's quite a nice talent.
Yeah, Panzo, I just had a look there while Barney was talking. He is out of contract this summer, so it makes sense for him to go, I'm sure. Just lastly, before we let Barney go, I know just taking it back to the start, and it sounded like it's been a bit chaotic with transfers, but in the isolation of the Forest deals, it sounds from what you're saying they've worked, and Rio Ave would probably welcome and keep signing Forest players on loan. Do you think?
Yes, I think that the talent that's come from Forest has been great. Um, the talent that comes from Olympiacos, one or two have been okay, but it's more the quantity that's they've seemed to have gone down a really interesting model where there's certainly been acquisitions like one of the goalkeeper, I forgot his name, a Polish goalkeeper, sorry, but who looks like someone who's come into Rio Ave but is going to be moving up the clubs and he's looking good. Then there's other players young players that they brought in on loan as a sort of almost fit like sort of to give them a feel of if they might sign for Olympiacos or Forest and so there's a couple of players that I felt looked really good for that, and then bizarrely they haven't exercised their purchase option. In particular, was the Turkish defensive midfielder Tiknas, who they signed on loan for Besiktas, had a 5 million buy option, didn't exercise it, but the top clubs in Portugal were sniffing around him. He looked great, 20 years old, and I thought, wow, this could be a player that could make those step up to you guys at some point. And then they haven't done that. So I think that's, and then of course you've got all this going on, and you've got a manager sort of what players do I need to be playing here, like because they also had some other young talent like that is their players. They're not going to be going back on loans. So it did get messy. I think they've brought in a new CEO who was previously of a club called Estral, who were fantastic at picking up talent from quite obscure places, like obscure countries, which has not really happened in Portugal. So it'd be interesting to see if that direction is going to change, and the fact that maybe Rio becomes that testing ground to maybe get those jumps up. Because this year was just a bit chaotic, like a bit like not only did we have the players from Olympiacos and Forest, there was other loan signings and young players, and it just it was a lot going on. So if this new CEO can come in and sort that out, and if there's more of a sort of plan, I think that could be good. And then in terms of the Forest players, it was really clear to see the quality. I would say particularly Panzo. It was like, and so in that sense, I feel like this is what that side of it is working for Rio Ave. I'd say more the other side. Some players couldn't tell if they were just trying to get the wages off Olympiacos' books or something. I don't know, like if you see what I mean, like just sort of, it wasn't really there to boost the team. It was more just to get a player off the books. It felt.
Excellent. We shall leave it there. Thanks very much to Barney. Appreciate that. I'm sure we'll have him back on. So if we're linked with Portuguese players and Portuguese league players, I'll definitely reach out to the lads for that, because I do enjoy speaking to them. We shall be back on, unless anything big happens with Forest, we'll be back on Monday with a normal transfer roundup and general chat. Excuse me. And then we'll have lots of good stuff through the week to come. So do join us for that. But if you can't, do us a favor, just hit like on this video and subscribe before you go. And if we don't see you tomorrow, we shall see you soon.